I've got an idea for how elemental items can be added to Legion. It's got a lot of benefits from both a design perspective and a flavor perspective. I've posted about it in the forums before, and now I think it's time to do a video on it. I realize it's too late for this idea to enter Legion at launch, but the vision for this entails adding to professions after launch, so it's not that huge a problem. Now, I minored in philosophy when I went to college. I had a lot of fun taking that minor, but one of the courses I had to take was a history of philosophy course, and that course taught me about how the ancient Greeks thought about the four elements. In a way, they believed in four even more primal things that composed those four elements. In their minds, there were two opposite kinds of attributes, hot opposing cold and dry opposing moist. Hot and dry came together to form fire, hot and moist came together to form air, cold and moist came together to form water, and cold and dry came together to form earth. Now imagine an elemental item system in WoW where the motes stuck to those hot, cold, dry, moist attributes instead of motes being direct elemental items in and of themselves. Though for the purposes of this video, since moist doesn't necessarily refer to the presence of water, I'll use rarefied and congealed instead. And the example system that I'm going to describe here isn't going to stick too close to how the Greeks put their attributes together. So imagine that there are motes that come in hot, cold, rarefied, and congealed varieties. Maybe they drop off mining nodes, maybe there's a chance to get them when you skin enemies, maybe they're a reward for doing heroics, whatever. These are what you start with. But when you want to use these reagents to do some actual crafting, you combine two different kinds of motes together. Hot and rarefied motes become amalgamated fire, hot and congealed motes become amalgamated earth, cold and congealed become amalgamated water, and cold and rarefied become amalgamated air. This way, the motes always have at least two uses, so it's much harder for a given mote to be useless to any given player. It's like the opposite of Trillium ore. And the benefits do not end there. Let's say that Blizzard wanted to add another four elemental items on top of those to the game after a given patch so that they could have new recipes for new items that have a completely different flavor from the craftable items in the last patch. For instance, if instead of wanting the classic fire, air, water, earth elements, they wanted holy, life, shadow, and mana, which were elements that they either passed over or slowly removed from the game over the last several expansions, but which would make a lot of sense to use for a Legion invasion of Azeroth. If Blizzard adds just one other kind of mote, call them empowered motes, then they can set things up so that an empowered mote can combine with hot, cold, rarefied, or congealed motes. For instance, imagine if an empowered mote combined with a hot mote became amalgamated light, or a cold mote to become amalgamated shadow, or a rarefied mote to become amalgamated mana, or a congealed mote to become amalgamated life. This setup would allow older regions to still be relevant in later patches, while still also providing a new and different flavor as the expansion goes on. Of course, Blizzard hasn't had a very good track record about expanding and improving professions as expansions progress. They tend to either do things that don't work, or fail to put any effort into professions at all except at the expansion's launch. Then again, they're putting more effort into Legion than into any expansion in the past, so who knows? They might just give it a shot this time around, and I'm hoping that they try this idea. If they make sure the effects, or at least the naming of the items that fire, air, water, and earth elemental items create, then this would add a lot of flavor to crafting and flavor to the game in general. This hot, cold, rarefied, congealed elemental system is just one example of how a dual-purpose mote system could work, and there are a ton of possible themes to choose from for motes. It wouldn't necessarily need to be these. There are a lot of opposing aspects of the world to pick from that could be used to add flavor. Static versus dynamic, rising versus falling, sun versus moon, flexible versus firm, haste versus patience. I could go on forever, and any combination of these could form other elements that haven't been in the game before, like frost, fell, lava, lightning, gravity, and who knows what all else. The possibilities for flavor and flexibility just don't stop. But this video has to stop somewhere.